Beep, 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 beep.
Oh,
Oh,
it's 600 days today, no booze for me.
600 days, no booze. Ladies and gentlemen, what a great way to start this episode. Can we have a round of applause for Lindsay? Oh, God. Were you taught by Mr. McFarlane? No.
I'm trying to process who is that. No.
If you don't, yeah, you would have known exactly who I meant if you knew who I meant. I don't know if anyone's in the chat, if anyone's live, if anyone's live.
Can you hear us?
How have you been, mate? How's your week been so far?
Well, I was just making a note for myself to do a little shout out on social media because I was back to school and
Bear with us. Been told there's no sound, but
oh,
it sure as hell should be.
oh, I'll stay quiet for a moment. Hold on. Let me go on and see what's happening.
It's okay. Anna had us muted.
There is sound, just not for Anna.
Not gonna lie, I'm kind of happy that it was just you. I was looking at them being like,
oh.
I do not know how to fix this right now.
So for you, Anna, darling, what I was saying is I was back to school this week, as I know plenty of teachers will have been.
Wah, wah.
I know, but it also means that parents, students, it's quite a distressing time, right? Everyone's got to get back into the swing of it, get back into that routine.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, school's not a happy place. So, along come the tantrums again and
Yeah, I
the
know.
demands.
And that's just the teachers, right?
Yeah. A lot of our training today was like, how can we regulate ourselves and to be the best people possible to then manage these younger people that are well within their rights to still be struggling. And
oh god, yeah. And we've heard in the news the amount of GCSE results that again we're not hitting last year's targets, and there's been a call to drop re-sittings because apparently they're being seen as degraded. So many kids have struggled with GCSE this year across the board. And again, this is just a factor of austerity. Austerity is the situation you put your citizens in when you squeeze all the money out of them, and it leads to homelessness. It leads to not being able to afford food. It leads to inflation and stuff, and it's just another point of that. So, if you didn't get the grades you wanted this year, do not worry. I know plenty of people that did not get GCSE results, and they are doing better than I am right now.
Well, this is the thing. We had this conversation today, and my point always is because a lot of my students say, "Oh, F the exams. I don't need the exams." I'm like, but what you do need is resilience, motivation, creativity.
Yes.
There's still a lot of skills you do need. So if you've got those things, you are going to be absolutely fine. But if you think that just sitting on your butt, you're going to kind of be able to navigate the world, school is not the best preparation for how the world is going to be. And we even said, didn't we, that the one thing that exams teach you is that your effort is proportionate to your result. But that's not life. You can put in, especially as ADHDers, can put in like 200% effort and still not get the results that...
Meritocracy does not exist anyway, but for the average ADHDer, definitely does not exist. You can try.
And that's half of where the trauma comes from, right? Because you're thinking, I am trying my bloody hardest and I'm still not getting the result that guy is just through just kind of like putting in 10%.
Still making mistakes, the same stupid mistakes.
Or to be fair, it's a spiky profile. It's like I'm absolutely exceeding in so many areas of my life. But then like I was just saying before we went live that if I've got all on top of my washing, I'm there like, hallelujah, I am bossing it. Watch me go. If I remember bags when I go shopping,
I'll have one day where I've put a load of washing in, I've managed to get it folded and in the drawer before like 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And I'm like, not only did I get it done, I got it done before 6 p.m. Who am I?
Feel like you're on
this is it
fire.
now. This is me. And then the next day hits me and I'm like, oh no.
Well, then it's like you turn around and you forgot to, or you forgot to eat. It's like you just think you've nailed it, and then another thing is falling apart, and you think, oh, or you've realised you've not seen any of your family for 6 months, or there's a
Got to
friend.
insure your car. You're just driving down the road like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
committing a crime right now.
So it's that spiky thing of kind of always feeling like you're like, oh God, I'm nearly drowning, but I'm not quite.
Hey, a part of me actually misses exams. I don't think I felt as much as I was drowning during exams than I am during adult life.
Do you think, oh God,
Comparison, anyway. I may have thought I was struggling at the time.
let that be a lesson to you, those kids out there that are going, oh God, I hate the exam time.
Give
But
me of mice and men any day.
yeah, I do feel like their exams are even harder than they were when we were young, and there's more of them. Like the English paper consists of about 11 pieces of writing, like poetry and verses, and
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that it changed, that instead of having a book that you could take into your exam, you now have to
Memorise
memorize
it.
the entire.
Yeah,
And this was memorize a whole book of Mice and Men, quite a chunky book,
yeah,
as is, To Kill a Mockingbird, whatever these GCSE, whatever book you were given. And then on top of that, there's a load of
poetry.
I can't remember one poem. My favourite poem is poem 130. Might have got that wrong. It's by, obviously, Shakespeare. Um, I know the first line, but it's still my favourite.
Yeah, yeah.
It's written in a language that I haven't. I know what it means. I can analyse it, and because I did these lessons. But
Yeah. This is the thing. It's like, don't even get me started on education and its utter irrelevance. Currently, it could be so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love poetry, but if someone said at the start of this year you've got to memorise this,
Yeah.
it'd have put me off from the get go.
Yeah, no, it's actually really unfair.
What's the chat saying?
Hello, everybody.
Gonna say and ignore you. We'll never ignore you, and I'll always take the warnings that there's no audio.
Yeah.
Hey ladies, I can hear you. Thanks, Lou, for the confirmation.
Mark's in the chat as well.
Thank you for the lippy. I literally put it on a few minutes or whatever before we started and turned around like, oh no. I was like, is this too much? Am I doing too much?
The lippy looks cool. I like it.
I was saying though, it is about 5 years old. Jeffree Star, his products are good, but my lips might start to like bubble. Let me know if something starts like dripping or whatever. But thank you very much. It is periwinkle blue.
Very cool. Very cool.
We've got Mark. Mark, you're here. It's so lovely when we catch us live. How are you doing? And where are these photographs? I check my email daily.
Yeah, send them over.
I want these photographs, these beautiful traveling photographs. We've got a good episode today. I'm sure you've seen the thumbnail.
I'm looking forward to it. I was just writing more notes then. The whole lippy shade like kind of triggered another thing that I needed to cover. I've got so much I want to say.
So much that I want to say. No, it's a good one. We've had a lot of questions this summer from different things, different events we've done, and we're realising we're getting the exact same questions, the exact same comments said to us over and over. And some people you can see as they're saying it, they're like, I'm sure you've heard this before, but some people literally look like they're breaking it to you like, I'm going to be shocked. And I almost feel a little bit sad for them when I'm like, I'm really like 8 years waiting list. Like, I'm hurt for you, but I'm not shocked. I've heard this so many times and it's breaking my heart. There was one woman that said her child's school really supported her, and we were like, tell us again. Tell us the nice story again.
But the other thing was that it was in the news quite recently that the waiting time had gone up to 8 years for and that's just for diagnosis. So you've got to imagine that you might be waiting 8 years for diagnosis, and then you've got to wait again for support. And there's a medication shortage.
Yeah, your first medication.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
We don't laugh, we cry.
Yeah.
If the chance of you getting the correct medication that first try around, there's a lot of process. It can take years, even without this waiting list problem, without these assessment time problems.
Yeah, so we thought this is literally why we started this whole platform, was to fill that knowledge void and fill that gap of people that feel lost.
Try, right?
Well, it breaks my heart seeing people like flounder around completely blind as to and beating themselves up. That's the thing that gets me the most, when people are really like, oh, I'm useless, I'm rubbish. I'm like, you're not. It's the system and the society that's making you feel that way.
And I'm sure, like, as much as we're equipped to help, we have those moments too, right? Where you sit there and you're like,
God. And it can be the smallest thing that like triggers you off. It can be like, for example, I'm on top of my wash and then I'll realise I forgot to eat my breakfast and I'm like, "Oh, I'm such an idiot." Like, I mean, I do catch myself and think, all right, Linz, chill out. You're not an idiot. Like,
it's actually always the small things, right?
yeah.
Like, big problems. It's like, I'm too busy trying to deal with the problem.
Yeah.
It's when the most ridiculous, like, you're trying to, just open a bag of crisps and they all just go, poof, and you're like,
Yes. You want to run and jump off a cliff over it.
yeah.
Like,
But that happened when I know I've got 20 minutes to quickly have some lunch.
yeah.
Now I'm picking up crisps off the floor, trying to stop the cats eating them.
And why have you only got 20 minutes? Because of your poor time management. And there's probably been 10 other things that have tested your patience. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back by the time it gets to that. We were talking about this today in training, precipitating factors, that when you're unaware of the baggage that people are turning up to a situation with. So, always try and be aware of that.
Where that compassion comes in, right?
So, just to make you all aware, this guide is available on our website for absolutely free. The digital version is free, and then we have got the beautiful physical copies in front of us as well as the FAQs that we've got to go through, the symptoms and the struggles, our tips and advice on managing it. We've also got these guides as well that we may well be flicking through and looking at as we go, and it's really, really nicely presented in a way that's ADHD friendly, because let's face it, here's the NHS list of symptoms and struggles. It's all very negative, deficit based. And then the way that ours is presented, it's like, it's bright, it's fun, it's engaging, and hopefully it's relatable as well, rather than just being like fidgeting.
I love these books, and it was so fun at Barefoot Festival to see people, like, because they're online, right? You very rarely get to see people. I mean, maybe your
Flicking through
students go
them.
through them, but people were literally. I remember Lou saying that you were talking to someone, and behind this guy just picked one up and was just looking, and he was like, to his mate, "Ain't that me?
Yeah.
Ain't that me?" And you could see like
discovery.
Yeah, the clothes going, and these books are full, jam packed with so much. Like, when I was a kid, this is the kind of book where, as I was learning to read, I'd be like, oh,
there's
this.
space for notes as well, so you can make it your own. But also there's adjustments. There's a whole list there of reasonable adjustments that you could either ask for. You can either adapt them to the workplace or the classroom setting, because quite often you're told, well, your child's got a diagnosis. Now you're allowed to ask for reasonable adjustments in the classroom. How do you even know what they are? So there is a whole list to kind of get you started. And they're broken up into cognition, focus and learning, physical and sensory, and social, emotional, and mental health. Oh, and language and communication. Because again,
this level of detail,
you might not have difficulties in all of the areas, or more difficulty in one area than the other. But self-discovery, I think you just used that word. That is what this platform is all about. Discovering what makes you you.
Definitely. And finding that value, something to be proud of. We spend so much time of our day just being like, oh God, I'm such a negative comment here, that you're like, oh.
And that's the first thing that you've got to watch. That's one of the tips that I've written down, is that creating a nicer inner internal dialogue was my starting point, probably at about 28, 29. I started to realize how I was talking to myself. I was very compassionate towards other people, but myself, I was giving myself no tolerance, no room for error, perfectionism, all of that.
No, definitely. And you're going to find that there's also people that struggle the other way, where they're quite good at accepting other people's help, but they're not very good at returning it necessarily. And this is just strengths that we can work on. It's about identifying it, about being honest with yourself, honest with your children, if it's your kids that you're working through this identity processing with. What's the chat saying? Mark, he's still sick, chest infection. I'm ever so sorry. I had one myself a few weeks ago, and I've only just started. At least I think I sound normal again. I don't know if I fully
Well, we'll soon find out if she has a coughing fit midway through. But you're laughing without coughing, so this is a good sign.
It's the last 2 episodes just been testing you, really.
Yeah. How can you perform on your own? Why are you going to leave me? Solo. I can't perform well on my own. I need the feedback. Like someone sitting beside me.
I know what you mean.
It just makes it so much easier having the bounce,
Ain't it?
someone bouncing off you.
It makes me appreciate people that do solo podcasts so much more. Like, especially comedic ones. You're telling jokes with no feedback. You've just got to be really sure that you're funny. It's just, it must be horrible.
Hiya, Dane. He's in the chat as well.
Hey, Dane.
And Jade.
The books are amazing. Definitely needed in so many settings. Completely agree.
Jade, yeah.
Yes, it was great to see people engaging so well with them and getting some self-discovery. Definitely, like self-discovery. It's an exciting term, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's one that when you're bogged down with symptoms and struggles, this idea of being able to explore yourself and be like, oh.
And it'd be exciting rather than negative.
And you don't just have to be neurodivergent to identify yourself.
Well, that's part of this platform, isn't it? We're not just, if you're ADHD, if you're autistic, it is a self-discovery platform. It's about identity.
Anyone that is unsure about who they are or who they want to be and what they want to do about who they are, that's what we can help with.
Jade, I just laugh at myself daily. To be honest, 99% of the time I'm in a good place and I just laugh at myself. Like, just quickly sidetracking, but this week the battery on the bus has gone flat again, so I've been having to charge it up whilst I'm there. And midweek, I think it was Sunday, I decided I was going to go home and I was umming and ahhing, and then I was like, I'll just do a bit more painting. Like, I am shattered, like I've not stopped. I just need it to be done now, and it's nowhere near done. But so I was like, just stay, because then at least the battery's going to be charging for a bit longer. And then when I went in to turn everything off, it wasn't switched on at the wall. But that was it. I hadn't plugged it in because I'd unplugged it to do me and my brother some crumpets when he'd seen me at midday. So I checked when he'd come up, and it was midday was when he'd rang me to say he was here. And it was now 7 o'clock at night. And I just had to laugh because I thought, you knew you were going to do that. Like, when I switched them over, I did think, don't you dare forget. And I was like, I won't forget. And I'd even thought, stay, because then your battery will be on charge longer. And that still hadn't triggered.
That is one of them, like, the ADHD AF do the, what's the most ADHD thing you've done this week?
Oh, yeah, that. Yeah. And it is that thing, as if you don't, it's like, do you ever put something down and you have no idea where you've put it?
Literally my pen as I'm writing stuff.
But even like, say if you walk in the house and you've got something in your hand, then the next thing you're aware of, it's not in your hand anymore. And you try and there's no memory to trace back through. Memory. Yeah, if the brain is doing something else, it's not putting down memories so you can absent-mindedly do so much stuff.
But how does anyone's brain do that? Does that mean everyone's like, put that down there, put this over there?
I think they haven't got the deficits in those areas that we're experiencing, so then it kind of like,
right, okay, we're processing it too fast and it's not actually setting in
we're
anywhere.
just like, maybe focusing on something else. So
I don't get neurotypicals. You're weird.
I'm just trying to read that comment. I've not got my glasses on, so I love that.
It's just weird. If it were me and someone told me that I was a blank page for notes, I'd be a smarty pants and write the word notes in giant letters. If anyone gets mad, I'll reply, what, you said it was for notes? Well, it's actually quite funny.
It says on here, look, make your notes here. So you can just write notes all over it if you like. It's your notes. So
it's your notes.
Absolutely.
Your notes. Your notes.
Yeah. Make your notes here. Your notes.
You can use your notes section however you wish. I'd laugh so hard if I just found just one in the wild, just like, oh, what's someone written in the notes?
Your notes, yeah.
That's our tribe. It must be so boring being typical.
Yeah.
Typical in all senses of the word.
Yeah.
My wife would lose the pen too. Like, I don't understand. I've not moved. I've not done anything to move. It'd be writing in this diary and I'd be like, oh, let me just check a date for that. I'll put my pen somewhere, check the date on my phone, and then it doesn't make any sense ever. And it's always like the other side of the table or somewhere strange. Yeah. I'm like,
how did it get there?
I didn't put that there. Being ADHD is also being very much haunted by
haunted is the right word. And then you, like you say, you're like, is it like, I'm always in that question of like, is that the universe playing tricks? Is it a poltergeist or is it just my ADHD? I have no idea. I know, I need to start seeing the funny side rather than getting mad at myself. And that is totally the trick. Like, if you can,
Yeah.
like, get it, like, with the plug not being switched on or plugged in or whatever it was, in my head, I was like, okay, I wanted to cry initially, but then I thought, you can literally cry and get so angry, but is that going to charge the
Yeah.
battery? Or you can laugh because in the back of your mind you had a feeling you were going to do this and just be like, oh,
Yeah.
silly Billy, you know, like that kind of
Definitely.
approach. So
It's weird. I remember being with a client and they were asking me, how do I know when to not get angry? And it might shock a lot of people, but the answer is try not to be angry ever.
yeah,
I know that sounds ridiculous and it's very unrealistic in some states. You know, anger is there to protect us in some ways. But anger is just covering up the, like you said, I have initial feeling to cry. Have that little cry. If you need to get that
yeah.
emotions out, get that out. But very quickly, laugh at the fact you're having to cry. Laugh at the ridiculousness that is your life.
Anger's on the list of symptoms, but like you say, it's covering up something else. So work backwards.
Yeah.
Why am I getting angry? What's caused this?
Yeah, because if you let yourself, you've got to do it before you start getting angry because we all know we love feeling angry. The second you start feeling a little angry and then you get a bit more angry because it's adrenaline and
Yeah.
adrenaline is there to keep you alive. It's it's very confusing. It's not fair.
It's like this big cycle, isn't it?
We compared ourselves while we were away to daddy longlegs. It's the most poisonous insect, but they've got no teeth.
Yeah.
And
so
it's
they
like
can't distribute it.
if we had these deficits which weren't a thing, you'd all have to just be worried all the time because
Yeah.
we'd take over.
We'd be a force to be reckoned with.
100%.
Like, I'm a force to be reckoned with probably three days out of 7. And it's just not consistent enough for it to be
My God, yeah.
meaningful.
So let's get to some of these questions then. Some are questions, some of them are just comments that we've heard a lot.
Yeah.
The first one, my child has been diagnosed with ADHD or autism or sometimes both. And from learning about their symptoms, I realise I may have the same diagnosis. Now, this for me seems to be like number one
Yeah.
of the commonly heard things from parents.
It seems to be how adults are getting their diagnosis right. It's
Yeah.
only when their child, and it was only through me working with school kids that I was like, oh. So even though I haven't got kids, it was still the same process for me working with young people that had got the diagnosis.
I showed very clear signs throughout school,
Yeah.
very obvious ADHD symptoms, and it took for me to lose my mind through a bipolar episode just by happens, an ADHD specialist was like, have you considered ADHD? I'd have never.
Yeah, wouldn't have even thought
I
of it.
remember being in that chair and I was like, but I never was a naughty kid at school. I was never, and he was like, no, this is it. Explained it to me, and it was like, have you seen
I
X-Men
said shivers through me.
in the centrifuge where literally Professor X, like the whole like universe is swirling around him, and he is the universe, and he is and it was all just making sense, and I was like, explains everything. It's absolutely nuts.
It totally does.
So to be an adult with kids learning that, because I get resentful that I struggled through education, right? But then there's relationships, parenting,
Jobs
that like, oh, I'm so lucky that I hadn't really faced many of them in a serious capacity for it to have really struggled without my understanding of myself.
Yeah.
I think I'd be in prison or in jail.
I like this t-shirt that Daniel in the chat is saying that it said ADHD makes me lose my pens and get distracted by squirrels, and then on the back it says turns out the squirrel that distracted me stole the pen.
Aha, it's always that sneaky squirrel. I need this t-shirt. Where is it from? I worked media at America's largest car event, Woodward Dream Cruise. Oh, that sounds luxury. It was much better this year than the past. Usually my brain not keeping up with my mouth.
I can relate there.
That has been my summer. I mean, it's my life anyway. If you watched any other episode, I speak way way slower than my brain processes things. But I feel like this summer, like when we arrived at Eyemouth, literally, I will stop telling stories about that place at some point. But it's just like it was a little slice of heaven. And I was just like, I don't deserve this. This is beautiful. And I just remember being so excited. I feel like since then, I just speak even quicker and even less understanding.
I saw this thing about the complexity though, and it was like ADHD me when I meet somebody is like, here's every single detail about me since I was 3. But then if autistic me is leading, it's like silent and can't even, can't follow social cues, and can't think of, and I was like, oh my God, that is me, one or the other, all of the time. And it's like, sometimes we've been at events this summer, haven't I? And I've been like, thank God my brain played ball today, because I don't know which me is gonna turn up.
I think it's interesting. I think it's important for people to understand, if you ever do come to events, that they do see us in our natural, experiencing ADHD and autism the way that we do.
Yeah, might be me just hiding.
It's like, bear with her a second. This doesn't last long, and you'll see. This is the example. It's just a momentary anxiety. But yeah, showing people that, like, even with these symptoms, we are here. We are
trying.
That's the best you can do.
Jade's saying as well, I wish I was diagnosed pre-kids, as she would have been a much better parent. But the thing is, I think there's a lot of guilt out there. Like, my mum watches these podcasts and then feels guilty, thinking, oh, I wish I knew all of this when you were a teen. But she was doing a fantastic job. You can only do what you know until you know better, and then do that. And it's like,
there is no space for guilt here.
Yeah.
Only grief. You're very much allowed to grieve
the old you.
the life that you feel like you could have had, but at the same time,
there's no guarantee that that's the life you would have had, though.
You're allowed to grieve for a certain amount of time, and then we move on, because the reality we have right now is our own. And what do we have if we don't have now?
Yeah, exactly. Gotta live for the moment.
I've been listening to Martin Garrix. There's a mix that he did in like 2015 at Ultrafest in Miami, but it's a song that's like, I don't know, it just reminded me of that. I'm not even going to go into that now.
I've got music on the things like the list of things that help.
Well, that song is replaying in my brain over and over.
So that question, though, do I need a diagnosis? That's something I was really keen to
definitely
cover.
Start.
Well, I only started going down the diagnosis route for 2 main reasons, and I was thinking about these earlier. One was because I was starting the platform, and part of me felt like I needed an official diagnosis for people to take me seriously, and part of me wanted to explore the actual process so that I could tell people what the process was like. But then also, I was in a relationship at the time where the person was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, you're not ADHD. So there was almost a part of me that was like, I'll show you.
I'll show you. Challenge, Lindsay.
I'll show you that I am. And I needed this diagnosis to validate myself for other people, if you see what I mean. We are now 3.5 years down the line, and since handing in that initial paperwork that I got completely wrong. I thought I'd read it right, turned out I'd read it wrong. Got it in late.
That's why you ain't had an assessment. They're still like, what does that say?
Yeah, I rang them up just to check that I was on the waiting list a while ago, and they were like, oh yeah, it's going to be another year or so. But that was definitely ages ago. I've written it down on the letter. If I found the letter, I'd have the dates. But now, currently, do I feel like I need a diagnosis? Absolutely not. Because I've self-validated in that time. I've healed a lot in that time. I've got rid of the partner that didn't believe me as well, which part of me is like, I've put on the thing, your lifestyle choices is very important, because as an ADHD person, if you're quite often going to have toxic people, it just seems to be trauma attracts trauma.
I mean, that's a human condition, right?
Just
avoiding traumatic people.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I work with ADHD people that are like, oh, my ADHD is so poor. But then they've also got a partner that's absolutely vile to them, a drinking problem, a smoking problem, no exercise, a poor diet. I'm not saying any of these things cause ADHD, but it's not helpful for anybody. Never mind if you're ADHD. So it's kind of like, look at your whole situation.
Yeah, definitely.
So do I need a diagnosis? Yes, if you want to access medication. That's the trouble, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard. For the medication, obviously that's the route you have to go down. Similarly, I'd say at university, if you're getting extra help at college, at university,
to access those things.
But that is a separate exam, a separate assessment. You can get an educational based assessment through a provider within the school.
Yeah.
And that will allow you to get extra time on exams, extended library book times. I know mine was an extra 2 weeks than everyone else. My exam times are an extra week.
Yeah.
And my dissertation was 2 weeks. I got extra.
I love getting extra, but I'm just thinking with the library books, like if I get 2 weeks extra, I'm still going to take them back late. Like there's still a deadline. Don't tell me I've got 2 weeks extra. give me that as a buffer secretly.
Well, this is the thing.
Because
So
I'll still be late.
you have 2 weeks, but you also have the chance to extend twice.
Okay.
Even I managed that.
Like my
Even I
parents,
managed to get them in on time.
my parents, everybody for years has always told me a family do starts half an hour before it actually starts. And then when I clocked on, that's what they were doing. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got an extra half an hour, you know. But I have got better with my time management.
Well, if something like cost of things ever is like enough novelty for you to stick to things, there was also that.
Yeah.
If you didn't return them, you had to pay for the original, like, you know, how much they paid for the book, plus how much it would, the damages to other students not being able to read this book until it's replaced. And not only that, you're not allowed to graduate until you have returned all your books / paid for them.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty like decency anyway, isn't it? You can't just leave with all your books.
I knew so many people that just had to pay so huge fines at the end because they were like, I have no idea where that book is.
And the other thing with diagnosis is that what you do need is an understanding of you. And sometimes when I realized I was ADHD, so self-diagnosis for me was really important because it kind of then opens up this community of people, like this research of like, oh my God, I relate to that. And you start this self-discovery thing. So I think access to am I ADHD is the best place to start.
Yeah, definitely. You might start looking into other things and realize, you know, whether a doctor clinically decides you have ADHD or not, to me, doesn't really matter. If you go through this book or you go through the NHS symptoms and you think, I relate to every single one of them, then I don't care what a doctor says.
Yeah,
you can get
you are
help for
ADHD.
these sets of symptoms with or without a diagnosis.
And that's the other thing that sometimes you can, like when I first went to the doctors about my ADHD, they were so condescending because they'd already made their mind up that I wasn't ADHD. Regardless of what I said, they probably thought I'd made up a list of things. But by the time I got the evidence in from my family and the reports, school reports and all of that, they were obviously a little bit more like, oh, okay, maybe there's something in this. But that's the trouble. It's like you've already been faced with a medical team that might be going, no, you're not. It's just this, or it's, you know, you're bipolar or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's really hard to navigate, and we trust professionals, right? We have to have this level of trust in professionals no matter what, and it can be really disheartening when they seem to, you know, if you're a woman and you're going through any medical problem right now, then you're probably realizing, oh, the medical system has not really covered you.
Yeah.
Your side. We're just looking into it now. Bear with us. So yeah, I feel like we don't need to be careful. I'm sure none of you guys will do it. You're perfect. But gatekeeping diagnosis during a time of austerity where people can't see a doctor quickly, where people can't get assessed quickly. But don't be so quick to be like, have you got a diagnosis? Well, yeah, probably haven't really got it then, or you still don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You struggle with these things. You struggle with these things.
Yes, and all we want to do is get the treatments and the support and the advice and the hacks and the ways to manage your life and the self-discovery, all of that beautiful things we can still get to you. You don't need that diagnosis.
I found that with autism way more, the gatekeeping thing. I think because I'm out there and hyperactive and, you know, a lot of the things don't necessarily match up to a traditional autism understanding. People are like, she's not autistic. But then there's a lot of complexities that's added to my ADHD that comes from the autism spectrum.
So much of this comes from social aspects, from opinions of others. And I think we need to start getting our medical diagnosis, our, you know, our well-being out of other people's opinions. Because it should be with the professional. It should be with the people that are close to you.
But that's the thing, the professional doesn't always get it either. I think it should be down to, well, does this work? Yes. Or does it hurt you that they think they're autistic? No. You know, like, I don't know. It's like, it is down to that person to question it themselves, isn't it?
I'm exactly the same.
Hey,
I'm always like, I always find myself when I'm defending transgender, like, people are like, oh, you don't care if someone identifies as a lamppost. And I'm like, not really.
Yeah, as long as they're not harming anybody. They're being less aggressive than you are. So.
I'm like, hey there, lampy, all day long.
Can you shine a light on me? Can you follow me home at 2 in the morning when they turn all the lights off? I'm scared that I'm going to get attacked.
Let me know when my mum wants me home. Just give me a flicker.
Yeah, don't turn on yet.
Mark's saying, I feel we need a diagnosis for so much, including what people don't know. Example, I will never have to serve jury duty due to the understanding of my ADHD. Hold up. Do I not have to do jury duty?
See, I don't know about England. It might be different in America.
And that's what I'm trying to work
Yeah,
out.
but this is the thing. As much as I'm saying, oh, I don't need a diagnosis, there's definitely times when they've I'm not able to access like extra accessible things because I've not got a diagnosis. So
Yeah.
it is a tricky one, isn't it?
Accessibility, yeah, it definitely goes a long way. It's the external support. It's
Yeah.
the working on yourself and what can you do. It don't see it as like a, oh well, I'll drink myself into a slump until then because I've got,
Yeah.
I've got no help, or
But this is why we're
well, I
here,
can't
isn't
do
it?
that because yeah, you've got your own.
Yeah, get on the waiting list, and in the meantime, do all this self-discovery stuff.
Yeah, don't wait for the diagnosis. That's the better one. Don't wait for a diagnosis.
Yeah, that's it. Rather than do I need one, do I not need one? You don't need to wait for one to start accessing
I
or
like that.
yeah,
I
or
feel super
understanding.
smart. I'm trying not to like be too happy with my own. No, you know what?
Yeah, I'm gonna say like
I'm a clever,
bravo.
I'm a clever girl.
Yeah.
I wish I was diagnosed pre. Oh, we've read that one. Sorry.
The eye contact one's interesting
I
because
had
I
like
can
eye contact with Jay Leno. Was this pre? Uh, well, he was in that chamber. He had like the car flipped multiple times. He ended up in like a, what's it called? Hyperbaric chamber.
all right,
Hyper.
no.
It like stops any kind of infection or.
Oh right, okay.
But he's fine now apparently.
Wow.
Um.
Well, the eye contact thing though, totally relate there. Like I can eye contact absolutely fine 1 minute, and then the next minute it just
Yeah.
the being able to do it. Like I'm trying to concentrate on what the person's saying, and in my head I'm like, look away. You've been looking for too long. Are they feeling like this? Like, and there's this whole
Yeah.
other narrative going on in my head.
I know what you mean, and very rarely do I talk to someone and I'm like, they're looking at me too intently. Sometimes it has happened,
Yeah.
and I'm always trying to work out, do I do that, or am I just looking at you normally? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I am. Someone, I guess it's a little announcement to friends and family. If I do, let me know.
It's so
Self
strict.
discovery.
Yeah.
I don't know this side of myself without
It
a
is so
mirror, I
strange
suppose.
because that's my spiky profile again. One time I'm absolutely fine with it, and another time I'm like, ah.
It's state of mind, right? It's sometimes like, I'm not in my head. Sometimes I am.
Very strange.
Shauna's carers do that with me, tell me false times to ensure I've got a Shauna ready on time. That's kudos to those carers. That's amazing. They've got you figured out.
So every time, like I think of Jade, I just remember that hilarious moment when I opened the shower door. We was camping together, and she was marching towards the showers. We'd only met that day, and she just like looked at me, went, "Forgot my clothes," turned on a heel, and just went walking back towards her tent. And it's like that whole thing of she was wet because we'd been not skinny dipping, cold water dipping, and yeah, and she obviously needed a change of clothes, but it was just
Yeah.
that she just stared at me for a second and was like, "Forgot my clothes," turned on heel, walked back, and
I just moment when you've just walked all the way there.
yeah. But that's
for a
ADHD
shower.
all over, isn't it? It's like you're going for a shower. What else did you need? Your bloody clothes, like to get changed into.
I heard Mark saying I have to self-diagnose dyspraxia and dyscalculia because no one professional in particular knows that they are there. Knows what they are here. That is still like blows my mind.
Yeah, I relate to the dyspraxia to the point where sometimes I question maybe it's not ADHD, it's dyspraxic because
Yeah.
there's such a crossover. But I think when I start to tick everything, I'm like, I am the ADHD spectrum of psoriasis, everything, like everything that you might get with ADHD. I've got.
I grew up suspecting that I had dyslexia because my dad has dyslexia, and I struggle with that. As well as like, I just thought as well as that, I'm crap at maths.
Yeah, but it could be dyscalculia. I'm dyspraxic ADHD. It's like
It's,
we tick different areas, don't
yeah.
we?
This like, why did no one point this out?
This is another thing that I wanted to create with this platform is that I worked in these specialist schools and saw it all, and I was like, why has nobody noticed this big picture?
Yeah.
That it's not just I've never come across a kid with just autism. it's always dyslexia and autism, or ADHD and autism, and I've never come across a kid with just ADHD.
Yeah,
It's like dysgraphia, like there's always more to it, and it's like, yeah, because they all overlap and they're all on the same spectrum. Like, why are
definitely.
we not, when we diagnose someone with something, then going, oh, by the way, you're probably going to relate to all of this as well?
At least, running checks. If
Yeah.
you have a heart problem, they don't just go, oh, we'll check this one thing. Nope, it's not that. You good. They will do a run of, all right, it's not that. So we'll check, oh, it's that. Oh, you found out you have this. This means that you may struggle with this.
Yeah.
You may have a higher risk of this. Therefore, we'll monitor. That's what happens.
even with I was going being took to the doctors for nosebleeds every time I got too excited. Also for my psoriasis, also for eating this suspected eating disorder, it was sensory processing. They're all physical things that if someone was putting the dots together, they'd have gone, oh, is she hyperactive? Is she this? Is she that? Is it, oh, it could be ADHD, you know. So it's that.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's that separation, isn't it? Everything's so separated.
Mark's saying here, what does gatekeeping mean in this context? So
Okay.
gatekeeping is, and
Trying to own it, trying to own the right to say you're not autistic. Like,
I
if
would
me and
say I
Steph,
see it online a lot more.
yeah, say if me and Steph sat here going, well, that person says they're ADHD, but they're not. You know, like, who are we to say, but they're not? So it'd be like
Yeah.
us saying, well, we're the ADHD specialists, so this is our area, and nobody else can comment on it. And no one else can have you lot as communities. We're always shouting out other platforms and pointing you in other directions, but there's other ADHD podcasts out there that we've gone, oh my God, we do a really similar thing to you. We'd love to work with you. Radio silence. Like, they actually ignore our comments, and we're like, all right, like, sorry.
It's
I was just hoping we could team up.
Yeah, it's absolutely baffling. And like I said, I would say that I see this gatekeeping happening a lot more online. It's a really strange.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It comes from a place of resentment. You've experienced something your whole life. For me, for example, 21, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I very easily could have been annoyed at the people that were getting diagnosed quickly after me, who were joining this thing and being like, I struggle with, because you're like,
I've struggled all my life.
You're like, how are the kids that are getting it, but that reality isn't happening. The waiting lists have got longer, the assessment times have got longer. It's very easy to be resentful, I think, of.
Yeah,
almost. Yeah, you feel like, no, this is my struggle.
Yeah, I think what I've found, like how I mentioned with the autism, I found it more there is because I think some of the people, the autistic people that I've like come across, they have really struggled socially, for example, to maintain friendships, and they've been bullied and all the rest of it. And although
advocating for themselves.
Yeah, and although I've had experiences and different experiences, it's almost like they're like, but you're not as bad, you're not suffering as bad as me. So therefore, you're making a mockery of my diagnosis by then identifying as that. And that's a little bit kind of what we mean by it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that's the chat.
Jade saying, I've learned over the years that I tell the doctors what's what and what I want them to do, especially when it comes to Shana. Definitely.
I've heard people say that. I mean, I'm the opposite. I don't go to the doctors. I'm scared I've got really bad health anxiety, so I just ignore stuff. But you've said before, and you've just got to, you say, no, this is what it is, and they're Googling like, oh yes, okay, I think that might be it.
Yeah, you literally, I think it's called the right to be assessed, right to diagnose,
right to choose.
Right to
Jade's
choose.
going down that path. So you commented on the link earlier. So I was going to mention, right to choose as an option. Yeah. I don't really understand it though. I just hear people saying, if you say to your doctors, I know about right to choose.
Just say to them, I have the right to choose. I know about this law. I've looked into ADHD. I feel like, and they're, as a GP, general practitioner, they have to put you immediately for. There's no, well, let's do a mood chart. Let's do this. Come back in 3 months. Fobbing you off. It's like, nope. There's this. Okay. Let's do it. You don't need for me, for example, to write a referral letter. Yeah.
You've got the right to choose an assessment.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I have self-diagnosis dyspraxia and dyscalculia. ADHD person on jury duty in.
Yeah. So sorry. What? I was distracted, daydreaming about this.
About using the judge's gavel for a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah, that is funny. I've got a gavel. I'd quite like to be on jury duty.
Oh yeah, that's you'd love it, wouldn't you? You'd be so like, ooh,
In it,
ooh.
I love taking the students to go and watch the. We go and sit at the back of the courtroom.
Can you do that?
Yeah,
Oh, we need to go and do that.
yeah. Let's do it. It's great.
That sounds really fun.
It's fun, but it's also heartbreaking. Like like this lady got pulled in, and it was like quite clear that she'd got a problem with drugs, and that's why she was stealing. And sometimes the judges are really sympathetic, and they're like quite like, come on, you need to get some help, don't you? And sometimes you're there thinking, oh my god, that is such the wrong outcome for this
Yeah.
person. So
It always breaks my heart in the paper when they have like the note. People like some woman stole from Primark a total of £16 worth of stuff. She has to repay £250 fine
Mm.
and do community service. And it's like, meanwhile, Billy Big Bollocks with all his millions can
yeah,
commit fraud on a ridiculous scale, and
yeah.
he just gets like a oh.
There was something me and Lou were watching just as sorry to digress because it's pointless now because I can't even remember what it was, but the lady got caught and we were like, oh yeah, like we were laughing because it wasn't even that bad of a crime. And then they were like, yeah, she was sentenced to 46 years. And we were both like, what did, and the injustice, the inconsistencies, that's what frustrates me.
Yeah, that's terrible.
But yeah, back to the chat, sorry. I feel I need a diagnosis due to my situation, and unfortunately, I'll get more help if I do. And that is absolutely the thing that, what was it? Don't wait for a diagnosis to try and help yourself. But there is definitely people out there that are going to benefit from a diagnosis.
Yeah, recognize that accessibility becomes way easier.
And then, I wish we did go skinny dipping. That would have perhaps got you out of bed. It'd have been more intrigued. And then I'm expected to teach that are given eye contact. To young people with ADHD and ASD who struggle with eye contact. Yes, it's so important. Yeah, because part of our show you're listening by giving me eye contact. But like I said, when I'm giving eye contact in my head, I'm having this narrative about, right, now look away. You've held it for long enough. So
you don't want me looking at you. I'm not listening.
And then I've had people in the past as well. When I'm really listening to what someone's saying, I'm like this. Because what you want to watch is my ear towards you. That's my way of showing that I'm really listening.
I'm the same.
I've had people go like, oh, you're not even bothered. You're not even listening. I'm like,
no, I am.
No, I was intently listening then. Like,
I know what you mean. I'm a visual learner. And if you're just telling me a story, to look away and imagine what you're saying in my, like, I can't
plotting it as they say it almost.
So many people when they're like giving directions and it's down there and it, 3 directions and my brain switches off. But if I could probably like not look at you and really try and process it, I think I'd remember a lot more.
It's like the whole doodling thing in class. Stop doodling, and it's like what teachers are missing is that when they're doodling, they're occupying an area of the brain that allows them to listen to what you're saying. Or tapping, stop tapping. And now all that kid is thinking is don't tap, don't tap, don't tap. They're not listening to you anymore now.
Yeah.
Because you've stopped them from doing the one thing that was regulating them and
I used to look at the teacher thinking, just concentrate.
Yeah, so
concentrate.
Like
crap.
Now I don't know anything you've said. It's when you zone back in, like,
yeah,
and you think,
oh, I can come back.
Yeah, but then you're like, I have got no idea what this person is talking about. Do I stop them now and say, I'm really sorry? I just zoned out.
I know, I hope they're not at the end of the sentence because I need them to say stuff
give me a few
fill
more
gaps.
Yeah, I need to quickly glean. No wonder we're so good at jumping ahead and knowing where someone's going with it because we've had to fill in whole conversations with 3 clues before so often.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's when people start getting vague at their end of their thing as well. As you tune in, they're just like, and it was okay, but sometimes it just goes like that. Do you know? Have you ever done that? And you're like, yes,
yeah, like I really
maybe sometimes. Thank you for explaining gatekeeping. No problem, Mark. Anything for you. I feel social media has gotten worse. 100%. That's why I enjoy the podcast so much. Kind and caring people. I know exactly what you mean. I'm chronically online and it gets like disastrous at some points. I randomly was watching a comedian and was like, there was jokes being made about him being gay, and I was like, I swear he's not gay. So randomly I just on Google, is this comedian gay? And there was a Reddit post that was like, since he confirmed on his show that he wasn't gay, I find the jokes less funny now. But the comments were just like people being so annoyed he's not actually gay, and some people being like, I bet he actually is, he's just not.
Yeah.
And it was like, what
Does
is
it
this?
matter? Like?
How did I find this area of the internet of people being sad about? Don't do that.
And people
What?
being so enthralled with it.
Like, these guys are broken hearted. It was like, he's still not going to get with you. What's your problem? My son was diagnosed just after a year with them.
Yeah, right to choose. So,
Oh, fantastic.
I mean, I'd be intrigued to know as well if that's because it was a boy presentation and like they just seem to take females less seriously.
Because if a
There's,
boy is disrupting, maybe is he
yeah,
a bit more of a disruptive?
there's still that stigma as well, isn't there, that
Disruptive.
that boys are more likely to be ADHD, and it's like actually no.
Yeah, 100%. I always give paper for doodling because it helps them focus. Yes,
Yeah,
I remember
brilliant.
learning that about what's your learning style, which I don't know if I fully subscribe. Like I say, I'm a visual learner, but I love doodling. Well,
Yeah,
I never. It was a misconception that you'd go back over your doodles and be like, that's what this is. It's not about that.
no, it's about
It's about tuning out this thing that needs to happen so I can concentrate.
yeah.
It's the same reason I need to go through my phone while I'm watching something
Yeah, I'm the
/ doing
same.
something else because I can concentrate better.
Yeah, I used to get like told off that like you're not even paying attention to this film, are you? Like, yeah, but now you've made me feel like I've got to put my phone down. I definitely won't be paying attention because my brain's going to be elsewhere. Are you talking about Jeff Curie?
Jeff Curry. No, it was Tony Hinchcliffe. The Kill Tony things
Oh
that I
yeah.
was telling you about. I don't need to give this a plug, but if anyone likes to see the most cringe, sometimes it's amazing. To be fair, Kill Tony is a podcast by Tony Hinchcliffe and Brian Redban, who used to produce for Joe Rogan.
It
And they
sounds so
get
cringe.
up and coming, or not up and coming, just kids wanting to do comedy. Anyone that wants to try their hand at comedy. Some of them have done it like 4 or 5 times. Some of them have been doing it for like 2 or 3 years. And you get 1 minute. And then you get a load of questions asked to you by Tony and whoever guest comedian.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Sometimes it breaks apart and it's amazing. And sometimes these people blow you away and you're like,
And they're
you're going to be the
hilarious.
next biggest thing.
My son's 25, so hopefully he's not kicking off in the classroom anymore. But I still
I'm
wonder if
32. I'm always kicking off.
yeah, but then you're just seen as an erratic female that's like too emotional.
Hysteria.
So possibly be ADHD.
Burn me at the stake.
I nearly wore my witches t-shirt tonight, and then I thought no, so I've gone with the self-care one instead. Lou, I doodle away during staff meetings. That I'm absolutely the same. I was doodling away during the training that we're doing today, but it's like an absent-minded. I'm listening and I'm just making patterns on the page. I'm not creating a picture. It's like I'm just making patterns.
It's how do we deal with people then when we're at work and someone says, "Are you paying attention?" Because it's not school anymore. Now we're at work. How do you address that?
Well, I think it's about not shaming people and throwing your weight around. Like, if you're genuinely concerned somebody's not paying attention, I think I'd ask them separately. I'd like call a break because I'd maybe think, right, maybe I've been talking for too long. Call a break, and then whilst it's the break, I'd be like, "Is everything all right?" Like, I'm not sure if you purposely distracting me, but
pull me aside, Barbara. That's not shame me in public. I hated being diagnosed ASD at such an older age. Just figuring things out at 49. The trauma from past, because of what it is extremely depressing.
I feel for you there, Mark. I mean, I started to understand at 28, 29, and I feel like I'm 37 now, and I feel like I'm only just coming into my own where I feel strong enough to say, no, this is me. Stop telling me that it's an excuse or it's not really true or whatever. And I feel like I can stand in my own light more confidently now. But I definitely look back over a whole lifetime of kind of bad decisions and broken relationships and think, God, would the things have been different? Like, I always shied away from the idea of having kids because I was like, I can't even look after myself. How would I? But what if I'd been recognised earlier? Would I have felt? And I don't know whether I would have, but what if I'd felt differently, kind of thing? Yeah. What if I'd felt more able to handle it and less put off?
And this is why I say this grief you're entitled to. You get a moment of grief. in it, because the things you just said, you could apply to a partner when you lose them, or a loved one when you lose them. Like, what could have their life
Yeah.
been if it hadn't been that? And it's exactly that. You've got time to process it.
One thing though, I do think we're all exactly where we should be. Like, I'm a little bit kind of hippie and woo woo when it comes to that this lifetime is about learning the lessons that our soul
Yeah.
needed to learn. So I suppose a way of me accepting it is just by thinking it's panned out exactly how it was supposed to pan out. I've learned the lessons I'm supposed to learn, and I'm going to continue learning the lessons that I need to learn. Look forward, kind
100%.
of thing.
I love that. Gaining that perspective. Why, if you listen to that and you're thinking, God, how do you adopt that one step at a time?
Indeed, I never wanted my bloody kids and ended up with three of the little. That's funny because we were saying, weren't we, that there's more planning gone into my tattoos than some people put into having kids. Like, you know, when people go, "Oh, you're gonna regret them," and it's like, hold on, like, I'm not gonna regret this tattoo, but
That's hilarious. That's so true.
I'm just looking at the time and I'm thinking this needs to be just part 1, and next week we'll
Fully
do
agree.
part
I was
2.
thinking the same.
Hey,
Sending messages. I love that. Maybe you guys at home are getting the same messages.
I feel like everybody is really connected though, which is so lovely. Like, people are sharing their experiences and taking time to kind of think about.
Yeah,
Think about them.
definitely. Sharing your experiences really, it gives me a better understanding of where our community is. What are some of the struggles that are being faced? Because when it comes to creating, you know, after part 2 or whatever, then we've got to make more episodes. It's like, how can I
make it
tailor
valuable.
it? Yeah, it's all right me blabbing on about compassion focused therapy and blah blah blah. I want it to actually be helpful to you. So at any point, if there's a topic you'd like us to discuss, or an issue you're having, send us an email. A different human I always do that. A different podcast official at gmail.com, or you can put it in the comments.
Yeah.
But yeah, do we need a diagnosis? No.
Before we wrap up though, let's just run through this list of, well, I think you've got a neater version on there, a list of things that we may struggle with, because then anybody that's watching this episode can perhaps go and do a bit of research or understand like, we won't go into what these things are, but next week we can start with a little bit more detail around what these things are.
Right, yeah.
And then anybody that's watching it gives them somewhere to start with, okay, is sensory processing something that I need to understand more, for example? Or intrusive thoughts, because intrusive thoughts, I had this whole class once of kids. I say whole class, it was behavioural, so it was about six lads. And I mentioned, oh, I get these voices in my head, like when we was at the top of the cliff. I've put it on the video.
Yeah.
Where it's like, get closer, dangle a foot off the edge. And it's almost like heckling in your head. And I've always just laughed at them and thought, oh, they keep me company. And sometimes they're jokey, they're not always intrusive. Sometimes it can be really, say if I've seen something I didn't want to see on the internet, if I'm in a bad place, they'll keep replaying it over and over and I can't forget it.
Etches into your mind.
Yeah. And when I mentioned this to these young people, they were literally like, they thought they were schizophrenic and they were so relieved. Yeah. Because all they'd heard was voices in your head equals schizophrenia. So it's like, I think it's really important to understand what intrusive thoughts are.
Oh, wow, yeah. Self-talk in general, like how, like, character flaw. The amazing Pip show, she highlights this internal monologue that is constantly going, you know, it's she has her own name.
Yeah.
She has her own way of thinking. And
I'm going to name mine. Because I have some hilarious ones. Like, when I still smoked, I'd got a foreign packet of tobacco and it said Fuma Matar on it. Like, I don't know.
Smoking kills.
Okay. And my head, I looked at it and then I kind of, and my voice was like, Fuma Matata for the rest of your days. And I'm just like trying to get on with something. What? But it's like, it's hilarious sometimes. So, yeah.
I love that. So
yeah, not always bad. But
I'm still laughing at holiday. We walked past this just for no reason, just confidently, the Continental Strip or whatever, just walked off, and I was like,
oh yeah, Continental Soul.
Soul, that was it. And I was like, no.
Lindsay, that says consented soul. I was like, oh. But I've said, unless sometimes I read things completely wrong, so it was quite funny that I did it.
I think we did it so much between us holiday, and it's just like, it makes, you can get annoyed or you can laugh at how ridiculous. You thought, what? Just looked at it once, Continental Soul. Like,
well, it doesn't say that though.
in the name of any other place. You just
Well, when I get to a new place, I start announcing everything that I see.
Captain Obvious.
Yeah. Captain Obvious comes out, and I'm like, da 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 street, da 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 pub, da da da, and I'll know then I'm somewhere new, and then we'll see somewhere new. It's like I'm processing all this new and getting excited by it. So it's the
I like it.
impulsivity to start announcing everything.
I like because I'm excited anyway. We're getting into somewhere, and then you're mentioning it, and I'm like getting more excited at the stuff you're noticing. That's so funny.
So sensory processing, definitely look into that. I can't wait to go into that a little bit more because the 5 senses is one of my fortes.
You haven't got the other book.
Yeah, the basic 5 senses. I might bring that one next week. Intrusive thoughts. RSD stands for rejection sensitivity dysphoria, but even just rejection sensitivity, when I first read up about that, I started crying because I was like, oh my God, does everyone not feel like that then? No, like this makes so much sense. Like,
Yeah, the most overwhelming,
pain.
it can be as something as like every time you get into your friend's car when they pick you up before college or something, you'll do the same thing every morning, and every morning someone's like, do you want this chewing gum? Do you want chewing gum? And everyone's like, yeah, thank you. And then that one morning, you're like, do you want one of my chewing gums? And they're like, no, thank you.
Yeah, and you're just devastated.
Yeah, you don't consider they've already had one of their own chewing gums. You don't consider
Yeah.
they've just brushed their teeth, maybe they don't want one, or they've just had a orange juice or they're ready to have an orange juice and don't want. None of this enters your brain. You're just like, why am I friends with you? Why am I friends with anyone? I hate my life.
Yeah, everyone hates me. Like, clearly no one likes me. But yeah, again, we'll go into a little bit more emotional dysregulation, which ties in disproportionate responses to, small inconveniences. Having a massive wishbone and no backbone to see it through.
Cheers for that one, Lou.
Yeah. Someone who said to us that they've got to have more wishbone than backbone. Somebody actually said that to us, didn't they? And it was like, it stuck with me, and it kind of gives me a kick up the butt every time I think about it. Like less wishbone, more backbone. Somebody
This
actually.
lady you were talking to at the Barefoot, she moved to Loughborough.
I don't know.
Is that not
I
her?
thought it was a guy.
Oh, maybe.
Less wishbone, more backbone. I don't know.
Mark says RSD is me, 100%. Very difficult pain to
It
process.
is difficult pain to process because it's a physical pain to a non-physical thing.
Yeah.
So,
Like a visceral response.
yeah. Chaos. So just feeling like you're drowning all of the time, that you're chasing your tail.
Always late, having the same problems.
Yeah, your head's like all the time. Hyperactivity, inattention, hyperfocus, impatience.
Oh, impatience.
And this is the thing, it ties in because you get impatient, then you emotionally dysregulate, and then your anger comes out. Hypervigilance, so being completely aware of your surroundings and on edge because of your anxieties. Paralysis, as in when you've got a decision to make, just not making one at all. Like me and Jen went to a cake shop the other week, and there were so many cakes that if I hadn't have said to her, oh, I'll pick one for us to share, and she had walked off, I wouldn't have got one because I'd just thought, get it. It's too much to process and to make a decision. And when I went out, I told her that. She went, that's why I walked off. So I was quite pleased that I had gone for it because she had gone cake and then thought, can't make a decision, and walked off. So, paralysis is then you've got an appointment at 4 o'clock that night. So then the whole day you can't do a thing.
Yeah, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
You're so used to having bad time scheduling, bad memory. So you're like, I could miss that so easily.
It's just a horrible feeling. Stimming, which came to mind because I was thinking about fidgeting, which I'm saying like, I was like fidgeting away. But doing repetitive things to kind of self-regulate. Time blindness. Definitely.
As in, we'll see you at 7/6 minutes past 7.
But
every
even
time.
as well, you can be doing something you hate, and it's like you look at the time and it's been 2 minutes, and you're like, are you kidding? But then you can be doing something you love, and you look at the time and 3 hours has gone by, and then you glance again and another 3 hours has gone by. You're like, what is this sorcery? Like, it just doesn't seem relevant, does it? And impulsivity. So just making those rash decisions that get you into trouble, and spending money. And
there's a difference between impulsivity and intrusive thoughts. I know some people can get a little bit confused with
I mean,
I've heard people say impulsive thoughts a few times, which is quite an interesting concept.
I think impulsiveness as well, having like tics and Tourette's kind of almost crosses over, doesn't it? Because it's like, is it just my impulsiveness that I'm going and making like noises, or is it a physical tic? But that's again understanding, well, can you help it is it a need? I don't know. It's just these overlapping things all of the time.
Yeah, that's why we have the DSM, right? Because it literally defines each one, and you can decide whether you have one, the other, or all of it.
The other ones that I've added on since then was addiction, eye contact, anger, period problems. So having really bad menstruation and all sorts of stuff linked there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
we've got a load more questions. We've got a load more things to cover next week.
And then loads more tips and advice.
Keep it going. Like I said, if there's anything else you'd like to know about that you didn't hear in this list that you think we should mention or you'd like to know more about, please put it in the chat below.
And also tips and advice. Like I've got a whole list here that we'll be going through next week, but add them to the comments because then we'll make sure that we're sharing it on the show. And please share this episode and share the fact that we're going to go live and do this again. Because like I say, there is people out there that are, well, we know this now from being at the festival, that are genuinely stuck and feel like there's nowhere to turn. Quite a lot of people comment on my TikTok saying like, have you got any advice for me? My life is so dull and I don't know what to do. And it's just trying to access those people and say, we're here.
We're here. Yeah. So just sharing that gets it to other people's eyes, the chance that they will then share it. And you know how this all works. Another way you can help us is by liking and subscribing if you enjoy our content and you want to see more. Like I said, we'll be back next week. But we're here every Thursday at 7 p.m. for a whole hour. And chat and have fun.
The Patreon of the week that we're going to shout out this week is our amazing Lois. Lois! Who we will see at U Club tomorrow.
Thank you so much for supporting us, Lois, and to everyone else that is subscribing to our Patreon. If you'd like to subscribe yourself, I'll put the link in description. You can sign up for as little as £1 to be considered for this episode dedication.
And Lindsay Illuminates It will be out tomorrow.
Ooh, it's my favourite time of the month. So U Club tomorrow. Send us an email if you'd like to attend. It's invite only. And Lindsay Illuminates It. And then
I'm just writing perfectionism
back next week.
I just realised I didn't write that. See, there's the thing. There's so much complexity with ADHD and so much going on, isn't there?
That's a good one because I feel like that's something that I struggle with so much.
Perfectionism, that was, just in case I mumbled it.
And it was part of my trauma with the James Hansen upload. Shout out James Hansen. Thank you very much for coming to speak to us.
Please do check out that episode. I've had loads of good feedback. People really relating to the topic of discussion and seeing their life or lives of people that they know. And even like people saying, gosh, that is heartbreaking because my friend or my family member is going through that and they've just felt like a crap person their whole life and a letdown, and actually their addiction has come from somewhere. It's not just,
we see so often this like, oh, everyone's got ADHD nowadays. No, it's just being understood for what it was. People have always been struggling with ADHD, autism, all these different kinds of things that make them feel depressed within themselves and lead them to addiction.
They are the alcoholics of society. Or sensory
seeking. Before you just called them an alcoholic or a junkie.
Or a criminal.
Me driving without insurance. I'm not doing that, by the way. I have in the past once.
Yeah, right. I'm without an MOT, which invalidates your insurance. So, but anyway, we're here.
Jade says, "Love you guys.
We love you all.
We do.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. This is Lindsay,
and this is Steph.
We're a different human design,
and this is a different podcast. Good night.
Good night. Bye."